Good morning, students. I hope all of you are fine today. So, let's start a new chapter, which is Forest, our lifeline. So, students, what do you mean by forest? Forest is a land area where huge number of trees, plants, flowers grow and create a natural habitat for different kinds of animals. So that is why they are considered to be an immeasurable wealth for us because they provides wood for making buildings, furnitures, papers and many more things. It also helps the air to purify so that we can breathe. It maintains the climate. It also helps in the preservation of soil and also keeps the water clean. The students, forest is a source of many valuable raw materials and is also a habitat of different kinds of plants, animals, microorganisms as well as some people who are also known as tribals. Now students, we think of forest as an area where big number of trees grow close to each other. But it also provides some varieties of plants such as herbs, shrubs, wildflowers, fruits, etc. So students, depending upon the type of plants, forests have different kinds of plants. Forests have different kinds of climatic conditions. Based on that, different types of fruits, different types of vegetables grow on forest. Now students, there are many kinds of animals and birds who live in forest. So that is why forest is also known as a dynamic living entity where different kinds of animals full of life and also provides and also creates a natural habitat. Okay, now there are different types of forests in India. They are categorized into five types, five main groups. First one is the evergreen, deciduous forest, coniferous forest, marshy forest and thorny forest. Okay students, so the trees, the plants, they grow in the forest naturally, okay, and they can regenerate afterwards. Now students, forests have divided into some kind of layers. So each layers is a habitat for different kinds of animals, birds and microorganisms. So the layers are of five types: forest floor, herb layer, shrub layer, understory layer and canopy. Okay, so forest floor is a layer which touches the earth's surface. Now it consists of moss. Moss is a small green plants and fallen leaves, twigs. Okay, so twigs is a shoot, slender woody shoot type. Okay, which grows from a branch of a stem of a tree or of a shrub. Okay, students. Now it also includes some earthworms, insects, and other microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, etc. Now students, the layer which is just above the forest floor, they are known as herb layer. Now this is the lowest layer of vegetation in the forest. Okay, it consists of soft stems. So the plants which grow in these layer, they get sufficient sunlight, okay, before the canopy leaves open and it just obstructs the sunlight. Now just above the herb layer, there is another layer which is a shrub layer. Okay, so it consists of shrubs which is spread throughout. Okay, so they do have woody stem but they don't grow as tall as a tree. Now understory is the next layer after the shrub layer. Now in this layer, the trees do not grow as tall as the trees in the canopy, students. Now these trees are usually require shade to grow and the shade of a canopy, okay, which could provide beneficial nutrients to them. Now just the smaller trees grow to become bigger trees so that when tall trees die, the canopy can open up and they will grow more and more. And the canopy is the top layer which receives the maximum amount of sunlight and which the birds, insects can eat the fruit, and the uppermost branches of the trees acts like a roof. Okay, so that is why the branchy part of a tree above the stem is known as the crown of the tree. Now, what are the role of the decomposers? Okay, see students, when the forest floor is the area where fallen leaves decomposes itself, twigs, dead plants and dead remains of forest. Okay, so the microorganisms who decomposes these dead remains, okay, they are very helpful for us. So the forest floor is also known as the life of forest, for example bacteria, fungus, worms, etc. Now students, these microorganisms feed on the dead remains of plants and animals. So that means these decomposers break down the dead leaves, branches, dead animals to form humus, which contains a lot of essential nutrients so that the trees can take up with the help of roots and it could help them to grow, to develop naturally. Now students, when animal dies and decomposes, usually the bones remain in the soil, but it decomposes after a very long period of time. So that is why decomposers are also known as cleaning agents of environment. And the animals like crow, vultures who feed on dead animals, they are known as scavengers. Now, the interdependence of plants, animals, and forest students. As we all know, that the environment is completely consist of two factors: the biotic factors, which are considered to be the living organisms, and abiotic factors, which is responsible for the growth of the living organisms such as air, water, solar energy, wind energy, etc. So students, so organisms are classified into two modes of nutrition. They are producers, so the trees, the plants who derive or who get their nutrition from water and soil to make their own food by the process of photosynthesis. That is why they are called as autotrophs or producers. And the animals and some plants who depends directly or indirectly on plants and animals, they are called as heterotrophs. Okay students, now energy transfer along a food chain. As we know that students, that sun is the main source of energy for all living beings. Okay, so what does plant do? Plant just traps the sunlight for making the food. Okay, so that is why they are called producers, and they makes the food by the process of photosynthesis. Now every other living organisms including human beings, they depend directly or indirectly on plants. So the series of organisms which are dependent on each other for their source of food, they are called as food chain. So if you see the figure in the food chain, see students, there's a relationship between producers and consumers. That is, the plant is known as the producers, whereas the fox, lion, then rabbit, they are called as consumers. So that is why consumers feed directly on plants. That is why they are called as primary consumer, that is herbivore. And the animal which feeds on primary consumer, they are called as secondary consumer. For example, carnivore. And those animals which feeds on secondary consumers, they are called tertiary consumers. So they can be many types of animals and birds who eat both plants and animals. So that is why they are called as omnivores. Okay students, now, the next topic is the energy loss in the food chain. As we know that all consumers, they get their energy from the food after eating them. Okay, so when rabbit eats the grass, it just traps the energy which is present in the grass. And okay, now if the fox eats the rabbit, then whatever energy which has been derived by rabbit from the plants, okay, that energy or those amount of energy will get passed to fox. So in this way, energy gets transferred from one animal to another. Okay, that is one living organism to another, so that it can create a food chain, that is from producer to consumer. Now if any one of the component is being removed or is being completely destroyed, then the entire food chain will be affected. So as because students, now energy is transferred to the food chain, we know that. So when the energy is transferring into the food chain, there is a loss of some amount of energy. Okay, this is because the energy which is obtained after eating the food is utilized by the organism for doing the various activities, for maintaining the various processes like growth, repair, production, etc., reproduction. So an organism which passes out the undigested food in the form of feces like excretion, it just loses some energy. So the amount of energy which is stored in the body, it gets transferred to the next level. Now, the last topic of today's class, which is the food web. Okay, in a natural ecosystem means environment friendly system. There's a friendly relationship or there's a feeding relationship between different populations. So each plant or animal, they may be a part of several food chains. So we can say that a food web is a system of interdependent food chains which is used to various relationship of organisms. Okay, students. All right, so if you just see the pictures, see at the bottom of the things, they are called as producers. Next, they are called as herbivores, who are also known as primary consumers. For example, rabbit, grasshopper, butterfly, deer, all of them consumes the plants. In the next level, they are called as secondary consumers. They are also called as carnivores. For example, birds, mouse, frog, lizards. Okay, and the animals which belong to the top level, which is called as tertiary consumers, they can be both like carnivores or omnivores. Okay, carnivores who can eat only the flesh animals, and omnivores, they eat both plants and animals. Okay, students. So students, that's all for today. We will continue with our chapter in our next class. So thank you for today, students.